begin to start the base of our body. Do you feel the weight of your body on the cushion or the chair? Is there any sensation between your buttocks and the cushion, or the texture of your pants? Now your lower back. Do you find that there's any tension there? And slowly coming up your spine. Do you feel like you're holding any parts of your back with any tension, or do you feel like they're relaxed? And now come in contact with your shoulders. And now your left arm. With your mind's eye, just follow your arm down towards the fingers. Can you feel any pulsing of your heart? What does the texture feel like on your hand as it rests on your knee? And in your own time, shift your attention to the right hand and the right arm. And now bring your attention to your chest. Now bring your attention to the base of your neck. And just move it ever so slightly left and right, back and forth. Do you feel like it's sitting right on the pinnacle of a balance between being back and forwards or left and right? Just find that equilibrium. It's like there's no muscles involved, it's just sitting on the top of your spine. If your shoulders are relaxed, it should feel like the rest of your body is just hanging, suspended from a straight spine. And now just move your attention towards the muscles across your face. Are there layers of relaxation you can find within your muscles? What's the tension like around your scalp? And tension doesn't necessarily mean stressful tension. It can be no tension. There may be sensations across your scalp. You may feel your hair on your head. What's going on in your head area? And now finally your breath. Just bring your attention back to your breath. Just notice it breathe exactly the way it needs to breathe without any intervention. And when I ring the gong, just let this methodology go, let this practice go, and just sort of remain in that state of mindfulness. So often before we begin a meditation practices that are perhaps more formal, it's always an idea to sometimes reflect just on a period of time before we do a formal sit to just see how we are and notice how our mind is or how our body's feeling. Not from the point of view that we feel like we have to fix anything or make it better, but just actually to acknowledge how we actually are in this very moment in time. And that helps us bring the rest of the practices that we'll do in a minute, sort of helps us to not, run off left, run off right, past, future, just sort of brings us into this present moment. And so this technique, along with other mindfulness and presence, sort of is a good preliminary to sitting. So that's can be done by checking our motivation, it can be done by checking our posture, anything that brings us really into this space. So that could be something we could call a preliminary practice to meditation, something something along the lines of what we've just done. And being here under the guise of this Buddhist center, although the technique itself of shamatha meditation is not particularly or exclusively Buddhist, it's shared between many religious sort of therapies, I suppose you could say, or, you know, different techniques for meditation. But what is Buddhist, and I suppose what helps define some of the way that we like to use our mind as a training ground in Buddhism, is we have what's called these three principles. And one of them is what we bring our motivation to anything, whatever we do. It could be washing dishes, cooking dinner, or meditating, is how we direct the mind. And we have here a traditional prayer that we do at the start, and a traditional prayer that we say at the end of classes and practice, all sorts of things. That just means whatever benefit we get from tonight, it goes beyond ourselves, but perhaps also for our wider community and potentially all sentient beings. So you may wish to join in with me on this prayer, or just read it yourself, or just check out your own motivation for coming tonight. Yeah. So, by the power and the truth of this practice, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness, be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the great happiness devoid of suffering, and may they dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. So before we go over the instructions for the posture, we'll just sit for a minute and we'll use our breath as an anchor for our practice. So as we sit for the next 5 or 10 minutes, we just use the breath as something we keep coming back to. So if we find we get distracted, we just let go of that distraction without any judgment or commentary, or how did I get there, or why did I start thinking about that? Just let it go and just come back to the breath. You might find that that is something you have to do very often, and you might find that you don't even realize, and that's all part of the journey. So meditation is actually a process of which we get to learn our mind. We become familiar with our habits. We become familiar with our what the mind's doing. So this is the process of meditation. And we use our breath, we use an object of meditation to help use the mind to actually discover how the mind is. So I'll begin with 3 gongs and finish with 1, and we'll just sit quietly following our breath. If you find your mind's become distracted, just lightly and mindfully come back to the breath. Within this tradition, this Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the actual name of the posture that we are taught is the posture of mind and body in comfort and ease. And that's like a not a bad term, a nice term for a state of meditation that, you know, it might think that you have to sit in a Vajra posture with your, you know, like special, you know, like a yogi. Well, that's not necessarily the only posture to be in. This posture that's taught in this lineage, actually, there's a statue up there, a little gold statue, and that's a very, it's a representation of the posture that's taught within this tradition. And there are 7 main points, and I'm going to go through them, perhaps over the next 2 sits that we do, so that this aspect of the meditation, not just to do with the mind, it's also this connection between mind and body is quite related. And our body is said to inspire our meditation. So sometimes sitting in the right posture can inspire our mind to be in a state of meditation. So these are some of the terms that are used through the traditional teachings. Another metaphor that you might like to think about is the body is often likened to a mountain, like a really solid mountain that's, you know, majestic, it stands out, it's strong. And if you can imagine everything that swirls around it at those altitudes, the clouds and the winds, they're just there, and they're sometimes our thoughts and emotions, you know, they're swirling around. But this pinnacle in the middle, this mountain, is something that holds all that. It doesn't get blown over. It doesn't get swept away, if you like. It's this. So having this image of a mountain, our body sort of being this majestic mountain, is something that's can be used as a reference point. And sometimes the feeling that comes along with that can be represented. So in the way we sit. So, you know, if we're feeling like sitting and slumping, it doesn't inspire our meditation. But to really have a straight back, relax shoulders, our arms gently resting on our knees, or in fact in the palm of our stomach there. But whatever works, as long as the shoulders are relaxed, slightly back, and with your back, sort of like the way we did with the beginning with the neck, just sort of find that point rocking left and right, back and forwards, that equilibrium, that point that just helps you stay the most sort of erect, if you like. And that gives you a sense of feeling alert, yet relaxed. So those 2 feelings need to come into the posture, being relaxed and yet alert, because that alertness is what inspires the mind. So there's this connection that runs through all the time. So you can experiment with your backs, if you like, throughout this, without this next sit, with your feet on the floor, on a cushion, whatever it may be. Just find that point that your body feels most settled in. And like I said, it's not a period of contortionism. It's something where we want to feel like we are comfortable and able to sit for a while. All right, so let's see how we go. So you might wish to bring your attention to your body, and when you feel like you've got that the way you'd like it, bring your attention back to the breath and keep following the breath. And then every now and then just check. It's another mindfulness practice within the shamatha, okay? So first begin with your body and then go back to the breath. Now just bring your attention back to your body and ask yourself, do I feel alert? Does my body feel alert? Does it have presence? And at the same time, do I feel relaxed? Do you notice any tension in your body? And if you do, just say hello to that tension. There's no need to suppress it or indulge in it. Just notice any part of your body that gives you a sensation. And if you like, you can direct your breath to that part of your body. Whether that be an itchy ear or a tight muscle in your leg. Just direct your breath towards that part of your body. And just let go of the technique. If you wish to stretch or move your body, please do. So there's 2 points that I haven't mentioned yet about the posture. And one of them is in the breath itself, how we leave our mouth, how we breathe. And although I said we don't need to breathe in any particular way, sometimes we find we're breathing through the nose, sometimes we're breathing through the mouth. And either is okay. Many traditions, Vipassana traditions and other Theravadan traditions generally emphasize breathing through the nose. But here we often lean towards using the breath through the mouth. And there are sort of more esoteric reasons for that. However, the actual physical instruction is just to have a relaxed jaw. The chin is slightly down this way, and by doing that, it helps to extend the back of the neck. So with the chin down a little bit, helps to open up the back of the neck, and that has sort of, I suppose, implications in the sense that it keeps our channels aligned and opens up our channels, and the discursive thoughts that kind of get us distracted start to be cleared, and there's actually a kind of a clearer pathway. So that's more of a, a yogi explanation for some of these instructions. So chin down, opens up the back of the neck, shoulders are relaxed, and the jaw is just slightly left open. And you can imagine yourself saying the letter ah. So it's just like ah, and your jaw, you don't have to say it, but just imagine that feeling of the jaw dropping and just going ah. And that looseness around the jaw is part of the overall relaxedness that our body should be taking on. So sometimes breathing through the nose, we don't even notice that we're clenching our jaw. But by breathing through the mouth means we're bringing our consciousness also to that tension around the body. It's also perfectly fine to breathe through the nose. So it's just, if you wish to alternate, that's fine. The other technique that's suggested that is to sit meditating with our eyes open. Okay, so that could be very challenging, especially for beginners, because if you think about it, our sight is the most used of all the senses. You know, we have smell, we have hearing, we have taste and texture, and it's easy to sort of like just let all those be, you know, and that's why often as a beginner we close our eyes, because we're shutting out the thing that's going to distract us the most, is our vision. But it's also good to just experiment, practice with having our eyes open, a very soft gaze, just lightly in the space in front of us. And I say the space in front of us rather than the object in front of us, because that's part of the instruction. We don't focus 100% on the cushion. I'm allowing my eyes to have a soft gaze, and I'm really kind of looking at the space in between me and the cushion rather than the cushion itself. And the same way, when we're mindful on the breath, it's not like 100% attention on the breath. We're just sort of putting 25, 30% of our attention on the mindfulness. We've sort of got 25, 30% of our attention on the awareness aspect. So when we notice that we're not on the breath, and then the other 50% is just left in this very spacious, open and compassionate environment that we create for ourselves. So our gaze, in a way, reflects those three qualities as well. I'm not, you know, intensely trying to look at something at the same time. You know, I'm relaxed and just having my eyes open. It's often said that the eyes are the doorway to wisdom. I don't know exactly what that means, but in the Tibetan teachings, it's said that by having our eyes open, we're not shutting down. Yeah, we're not closing down the world. We're one with it. As much as we can hear things, we can see things, but we're not being swept away by them. We're not following them. You know, if we hear something, some music, oh, who's that artist? I like that song. I don't like that song. This is the chitter chatter that goes on. If we can just leave the seeing in the seeing and just leave the hearing in the hearing, just allow everything to be exactly how it is. Same with our body, same with our thoughts, our mind. Everything's okay, but we just come back to the breath whenever we find we're distracted. Okay? So the relationship between the body, the same instructions are also held for the mind in that way. So it's a more holistic sort of way of understanding and having body and mind connected. So let's spend the remaining 12 or so minutes experimenting with those instructions around the eyes, around the jaw, the breathing, but whatever makes you feel conducive to bringing your attention to the breath. If you find it's too distracting with your eyes open, shut them, it's fine. Okay. We'll just spend a couple of minutes without any instructions, without any sense of meditation, and just sit in the space for a couple of minutes. You're not giving your mind anything to do. Not asking anything of ourselves. So to conclude tonight's session, we'll use the prayer. It's got the dedication written at the top. And again, the sentiments behind this prayer is that perhaps anything that we may have benefited from tonight, any instructions, any sort of clarity or confusion, that we dedicate that for the well-being of all sentient beings, not just for ourselves. So you're welcome to join. Through this merit, may all beings attain the omniscient state of enlightenment and conquer the enemy of faults and delusion. May they all be liberated from this ocean of samsara and from its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Well, thank yourselves for coming along tonight. It's not always easy to get out on a Sunday, end of the weekend and everything, but I hope you found it beneficial in some way. And so again, thank you for making it worth for us coming in tonight also, so we get to practice a bit too. Yeah, I think some of you know the drill, but I have to say it anyway. There's a little donation box in the back corner there to help us pay a few bills. We're all volunteers here.